Hi all, welcome to Unshackling Sudokus and Puzzles. Today's video will be on a Sudoku called The Knot, created by Tenaliraman. So we have featured quite a few creations by Tenaliraman earlier on the channel, and they've all been exceptional solves. So this Sudoku caught our eye, and it was rated very well on the Logic Masters Germany portal from where it has been taken. And let us hope that this is going to be a really good solve. And if you want to try this Sudoku out yourself, you can play it out from the online solving link given in the description of the video. I will also add the link to Logic Masters Germany portal where you can find all of Tenaliraman's creations. They are worth checking out. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please check out the videos that we have been posting and do hit the subscribe button below. It will really motivate us to keep producing videos on a daily basis. And now let us move on to the rules. Irregular rules apply. Each row, each column and each of the irregular shaped region. So of course you have some 3x3 boxes like in a classic grid. So each of these 9 cell shaped regions will also contain digits from 1 to 9. Those are the irregular rules, and then arrow rules apply. So you can see that there are some arrow shapes in the grid, and in each of these arrow shapes the digit in the circle, right, is equal to the sum of the digits along the arrow stem. So for example, if you take this arrow, it has 3 digits, and when you add all these digits you will get the digit in the circle. And this arrow, for example, is a 1 cell arrow, so both of these digits must be equal. So these are the rules of the Sudoku. So with that, we'll start solving this grid. Seems to be very interesting. Okay, the first thing that to notice in this Sudoku is that observe these 3x3 regions in columns 7 to 8, 7 to 9. So we know that the last 3 columns contain 3 sets of 1 to 9, out of which you have 2 sets of 1 to 9 in these boxes. Now these cells, these 9 cells, will also have 1 to 9, right? And I know that this irregular shaped region will have 1 to 9, which means that I am losing 3 cells from this region outside. So if I were to imagine an irregular, if I were to imagine a line here between columns 6 and 7, I am losing 3 cells outside and 3 cells are entering inside. And which means that all these 3 cells must be equal to these 3 cells. This is the in-out rule. So I can use that here. So these 3 cells must be the same as these 3 cells, right? Because this region contains 1 to 9 and this region also contains 1 to 9. So the common between these sets is that these 6 cells, and which means that these 3 cells must be equal to these 3 cells. And using similar logic, if I were to draw an imaginary line between, let's say, columns 3 and 4, I have 2 sets of 1 to 9 here in this box, and in this region I have 2 sets of 1 to 9, right? And the third set of 1 to 9 must be in this blue region, right? And I know that this irregular shaped region also contains 1 to 9, out of which 3 cells are going outside and 3 cells are coming inside. So which means that the blue region is exactly the same as these 3. I'm just using the in-out rule. And similarly you have 2 boxes in rows 7 to 9. So which means that, let me remove the colors from here. Okay, so which means that these 3 cells are going outside between rows 6 and 7. So which means that these 3 cells are the same as these 3 cells, right? Similar logic, similar idea. And there is one more in-out rule that you can use. So if you were to draw an imaginary line after rows 3 and 4, you have 2 regions which are completely defined inside, these 2 regions, and 1 region which has 6 cells inside with 3 more cells. So which means these 3 cells, let me use a different color. Okay, this is equal to this. So this is the first, very first thing that you need to notice in this Sudoku. So the author has constructed in such a way that this needs to be observed. So let us see now. And now notice that along rows 6 and column 6, you have 3 red cells and 3 green cells and 3 red cells and 3 green cells, which means that these 3 cells are exactly the same as these 3 cells, right? Because both of these rows and column will have 2 sets of 1 to 9, out of which 6 cells are already red and green, and now which means these 3 cells are same as these 3 cells, out of which this cell is common, so that gets cancelled out. So which means this cell has to be equal to this cell, because it cannot be equal to this cell, it's in the same region. So this becomes equal to that. Let us use some notation, maybe a gray cell, okay, that's equal to that, and this let me use yellow color, maybe is equal to this, right? And if you look at these arrow stems now, I know that the minimum sum is going to be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, so which means that the minimum sum from these two circles must be 15, right? And that means that the minimum value in either of these circles must be a 6. 5 is ruled out. And same idea, you have 5 cells in column 5, the minimum sum is 15, which means that this is also 6, 7, 8 and 9. The same idea applies in row 1, the minimum sum is 15, so which means that this becomes 6, 7, 8, 9 and that becomes 6, 7, 8, 9. 5 is ruled out from these circles. And now the next thing to notice is that, so if I have a 6 here, you're going to get a contradiction, right? So if I have a 6 here, the yellow cells become equal in value. So this becomes 1, 2, 3. That's the only way to satisfy the 6. And you cannot satisfy this arrow because 1 and 5 and 2 and 4 are both ruled out. So 6 is not possible. And even 7 is also ruled out. If you have a 7, these 3 cells will have only one value, 1, 2 and 4. And now the 7 here can't be 1 and 6, cannot be 2 and 5, cannot be 3 and 4. So obviously 7 is not a 1, 2 and 4. I'm sorry, 7 is not possible there. And 6 is also ruled out from there. So both of these circles become 8 or 9. Can you have an 8 here? This becomes 1, 2, 5. And you can't have 1 and 7, 2 and 6 and 3 and 5. But however 8 can be 1, 3, 4, right? So if I have a 1, 3, 4 here, this can be 2 and 6. So that is still possible. And 9 has a lot of options. So let us not go deep now. And using the same idea, I can eliminate 6 and 7 from here. It's just the opposite. You look at the columns here, now you need to look at the rows. If you have 6 or 7 here, this becomes 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 4, and this 6 and 7 can't be satisfied. So I can rule out the 6 and 7 from here. And I get an 8, 9 pair. Beautiful, guys. A really nice start to the Sudoku. And I think I can do something with the 8, 9s here. So we know that you can't have 8 and 9 here because it is seeing both the yellow cell and the grey cell, because it's in the same region as the grey cell and the same row as the yellow cell. So both 8 and 9 are ruled out from here. And you also know that 8 and 9 cannot be in these 3 cells because it's a 3 cell arrow, and if you have 8 or 9 here, there will be a violation here. And the yellow cell cannot go here, so the only possible cell left for the yellow is here. It can't be anywhere here. You already have the grey cell here. You just need to place the yellow 8 and 9 here. So it can't be here. It can't be here. It cannot be here. So it has to go here. And now just using the same idea, 8 and 9 is ruled out from here. It's ruled out from here. So yellow cell is going to be in one of these cells. The yellow goes in one of these cells, which means that the yellow is in one of these cells. So obviously I can rule out from row 3 column 3 because I will need again 8, 9 here, but both 8 and 9s have been taken off. So this is not an 8 and 9. So can I have an 8 here? So if I have an 8 here, the only possible way is 8, 1, 9. Obviously 9 cannot be an arrow stem, and this becomes now 2, 3, 4 in value minimum, and that has to be a 9 now. So but 9 is already there, which means that I rule out the 8 and 9 from this cell as well. So now I have only one option for 8 and 9. So this has to be 8 and 9. Right? And that rules out 8, 9 from here. And can you have 8 or 9 here? So if I have, okay, 8 9 is obviously ruled out. You have a pair here, right? So which means that I need to have the 8 9 in one of these 4 cells. Basically the yellow cell needs to go here, but 8 9 cannot be in a 3 cell arrow. So which means that my 8 9 goes here. So let me highlight the green because the green cells are all equal. Okay, so we know that the minimum sum here is going to be 15. Can I have an 8 or 9 here? Seems possible. You also can have a 6 there. Okay, let us continue. So you have a gray 8 9 here, so which means that in this region, the L-shaped kind of region, the gray 8 and 9 must go here, right? It cannot be here, so it has to be here. Let me highlight that. Now I have an 8 9 pair, so this is not 8 and 9, that's a 6 and 7. So I placed quite a few 8 and 9s here. Now the gray 8 9 in this region has to be somewhere here. Okay, all seems likely. So let me write the digits which have to be present in these 5 cells. Maybe that will help us. So I know that in these 5 cells 1 and 2 must be present, right? Because without the 1 and 2, I won't be, I will be reaching a total more than 18, which is the maximum possible value here. And similarly the columns, the arrows in the columns also must take 1 and 2 for sure. And these cells also must take a 1 and 2 for sure. And even the 3, right? Because they are in the same row. The 3 also has to be in these arrows. Because the minimum sum without 3 must be 1, 2, 4, 5 and 6, and that gives you 18, but you can't have 18 from these 2 cells. However, 18 is possible from these 2 cells because both are same and both can take a 9, and similarly these also can take an 18. So that's why I haven't placed a 3 here. So it's about 12 minutes into the Sudoku, guys, and we haven't placed even a single digit. So it seems to be a tough Sudoku. Okay, so this arrow is interesting, right? So the maximum value here is going to be a 7, and I know that the minimum value here is going to be a 3. So let me write those. So 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and it's a 3 cell arrow, right? 1, 2, 3. This circle has a 3 cell arrow, right? And what are the values here? It's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and whichever comes here must be also here. So this is also 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Okay, so the minimum value here becomes 3, which means that the minimum here becomes 5, because 1 plus 1 plus 3 would be 5 at least. So we can rule out the 3, 4 safely from there. And I also can rule out the 6 and the 7, because if I have 6 and 7 here, this becomes 6 and 7, and the minimum value here becomes 8. So 6 and 7 are ruled out. So this would be 3, 4 or 5. So that is interesting now. Wow, this is a super sharp contradiction, guys. Really amazing. So you can't have 8 and 8 here now. Let's see what happens if this is 8 and 8. We know that both of these cells are equal. If you have 8 and 8, these 5 cells sum up to 16. So the only option for 16 with 5 cells is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6. And which means that this cell immediately becomes a 5, and that becomes a 7 for the row. And when you have a 5 here, the only possible value here is going to be a 7. So, but we have a contradiction now. 7 is in 2 cells in column 5. That's simply not possible. So, which means that you cannot have 8 and 8. So, that means this is going to be 9 and 9. Superb. So, we've got our first digit after 14 minutes. Close to 15 minutes it has taken us, guys. Wonderful Sudoku. So, that's a 9. That's a 9. Gray cells are all 9. Yellow cells all become 8. And let's see if that is helping us. Okay, we know that the minimum sum from these cell circles is 15, so this has to be a 7. And 9 is in the blue cell, so 9 has to be in the blue cells. 9 is removed from here. Okay, I have 8 and 8 here, right? So I can place the digits in these 5 arrows. So these two sum up to 16, which means that 16 from these 5 cells is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6. That's good. So the 8 and 8 got swapped up. So we can place 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 here. Which means this is not a 6 and we get a 5, 7 pair. And I know that 8 can never be in a 3 cell arrow, right? Sorry, 6 can never be in a 3 cell arrow. So 6 is ruled out from here. So which means now the only possibility for the 8 total is 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 5 is ruled out. There is no 5 inside. So this is 1, 3, 4. Which means this 8 has to be 2 and 6. And now if I look closely here, I need to place the 6 in one of these arrows. It's either 1, 2 and 6 or it's 3 and 6. Because 6 cannot be in any other cells. So if I have a 3, 6 here, this cannot be 1, 2, 6, cannot be 1, 3, 5, 2, 3, 4. Beautiful. So I cannot place the 6 here, guys. So if I have a 6 here, let's say you have the 6 here, this becomes 3, 6. There is no way to satisfy this 9 now. So I'll rule out the 6 from here. And now this becomes 1, 2, 6. And that becomes 4 and 5. Only way to satisfy the 9 now. And that immediately becomes a 7 and a 5. And which means that the only way to satisfy these arrows is that this would be 3, this would be 3, and that has to take the minimum possible values. Both of these would be 1. An interesting sequence to get a lot of digits. A nice creation, guys. A really nice creation. So I have 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, which means in this region the remaining digits must be 3, 4, 5. And that rules out 3, 4 from here. So this is a 1, and that has to be 3 and 4. And now I have 1, 3, 4, 8, 9 here. So which means this would be 2, 5, 6 and 7. And that rules the 2, 6 from row 5 column 4. So that becomes 1 and that becomes 2 and 6. So I can place the digits here now. 2, 5, 6, 7, 1, 9. So that has to be 3, 4, 8. And these cells must be 1, 7 and 9. I have 1 and I have 1 in rows 7 and 8. That becomes a 1 now. Which means this is a 7 and 9, and arrow stem can never take a 9. Obvious, right? So 7 is here, 9 is here. And which means this would have to be 8. 3, 4 gets ruled out, so that has to be a 1. And that becomes 3, 4 now. So all these pink cells are equal. We marked that earlier, so which means there has to be a 1, 8 here. In these pink cells, 1 is ruled out from here and 8 is ruled out from here. Green cells are all equal, so 3 has to be in one of these cells, which means I can rule out the 3 from here, right? The 3 is ruled out from here. Oops. 3 is in one of these cells because green cells are all equal. So if I look at this arrow now, the maximum value is going to be a 5. So obviously you can not have 5 or anything more on the arrows. Unless it is a single cell arrow, it's not possible. So 5, 6 and 7 get eliminated from here. So this becomes a 2. And I think you can place the digit here now, guys, because these arrows add up to 15. And 15 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 is 24. And that gives you 39. So which means that for the row, you need to have a total of 45. So that gives you 6 here. So that means you have a 5, 7 pair. And this 3, 4, 5 resolves this 5, 7 pair. Now my 1, 6 for the 7 is ruled out. So this has to be 2 plus 5 or 3 plus 4. And I need to have the 1 for the 8. 1 cannot go in columns 6 and 7. So 1 has only one option. 1 has to go here. and that rules out the 1 from the pink cell here, so 1 has to go here. So we are getting digits very fast now, right? So for this 3, you need to have 1 here, but 1 is not possible, so 3 is ruled out, which means that this has to be 2 or 3. If this is 4 or 5, this would have to be 2 or 3. So what are the arrows we haven't yet looked at yet? So this one looks interesting. So the minimum sum here is a 2 and a 4, right? Because 1 and 3 are both ruled out, so which means that the minimum value here is going to be 6. So it has to be 6, 7, 8 and 9, but 7 and 8 are immediately ruled out. So if it's a 6, it has to be 2 and 4, because 1, 5 is ruled out, and if it's a 9, it's not 1 plus 8, it's not 3 plus 6. So it's either 2 plus 7 or it's 4 plus 5, right? So these are the only possible options here. So we haven't yet looked at these arrows, so this seems interesting. So you can't have 1, 3, 8, 9 and 7, so this can only be 2, 4, 5, 6. So obviously 2 is ruled out, 4 is ruled out because 1 cannot go in this arrow. So 5 or 6, if it's a 5, it can't be 1 plus 4, it has to be 2 plus 3, and if it's a 6, it cannot be 1 plus 5, it has to be 2 plus 4. So either way you have a 2 in these cells. And row 2 has only one cell left for the 1, so 1 has to go here, it cannot go in any of the other cells. And row 4 is almost filled, 1, 7, 8, 3, 4, 5, so we can place it 2, 6 and 9. 9 cannot be narrow stem, and which means these two cells must be a 7, 8 for the box. So I know that 2 and 3 must be in these 3 cells, right? Because if this is a 2, this becomes 3 plus 4, and if this is a 3, this becomes 2 plus 5. So 2, 3 are going to be in these 5 cells, these 3 cells. So 1, 7, 8, 2 and 3, so remaining must be 4, 5, 6 and 9, but 5 is ruled out from here, so this is 4, 6 and 9. Sorry, it must be 4, 6 and 9. Well, this is a nice logic, guys. So you have a 2 in one of these cells, and you also have a 2 in one of these cells, which means that rows 7 and 8 cannot have 2's anywhere. So this becomes 4, 5, 7. 2 is eliminated from here. So 7 is also ruled out because 7 plus 4 becomes 11 now. So 7 is ruled out, and that is a 4 and 5, which means that this is a 9, and that immediately gives a 9 in this box. So that's a 9, so there is no 2's. So this is 2 and 6, and which means that you can place the 9 here, right? 9 can't be here, 9 cannot be in columns 8 and 9, so only cell left for the 9 is here. So this has to be a 9, which means that correspondingly, if this is 2, this is a 7, and if this is 6, this is a 3. But 7 is not possible, you have a 7, 8 here, so this is 3, that's a 6, that's a 2, and which means that the 8 now becomes 1, 2, 5, and the 7 becomes 3, 4, which means this is a 2, and which means this is a 4. Superb, guys, so much fun. Look how the digits are unraveling now. So this 4 resolves this 4, 3 pair, and 5 goes here now. Because of this 5, that becomes a 6, 9 pair, and that becomes a 4 and a 3. This 2 resolves this 2, 6 pair, and these two cells become 3, 5. And for column 3, you have only one cell left for the 3, so 3 has to be here, that has to be a 5, that has to be a 5, that becomes 6, and that becomes 2, 4. And that resolves the 6, 9 pair, and which means for the column you need to have the 3 here. And that resolves this 3, 4 pair immediately, so that's a 3, that's a 4. And this 4, 5 resolves this 4, 2 pair, and which in turn resolves this 2, 6 pair. Wow, this is so much fun, guys. Such a beautiful Sudoku to create. No wonder it's rated 95% on the portal. So 3, 8, 9, 1, 5, 6. So which means these will be 2, 4, 7. and these two cells must be equal to 5 and 6 because the red cells are equal. So this is 5 6, and that resolves this 2 5 pair, so which means this is a 5, that's a 2, and you need to have a 2 inside the green cells now, so this is not a 2, so that's a 4 7, and this 5 resolves this 5 4 pair, and that 5 in turn resolves this 5 4 pair. So for row 8, 1 6 8 9 2 4 5, so this has to be a 7, that has to be a 3. So for this irregular shape region, so why have I marked this yellow? I'm not certain why I did that. Oh, probably because all the 8s, right? So to indicate the 8, I must have marked an yellow here. So let us remove that. 2 3 4 7 1 5 6, so which means that this would be 8 9, so you have a 9 here, so that becomes 8, that becomes 9. So you have a 5 here, that becomes 5 and 6 for the row, that's a 6 now, and 2 3 9 1 5 8, so remaining digits are 4 6 and 7, and 6 is ruled out, so this is a 4 or a 7. So 2 3 4 and 7, right? So 2 3 4 and 7, so these cells must be 2 7 and 8. What am I missing? You have a 4 6 here, so that becomes a 7, that's a 4, that's a 7, that's a 6, right? So 7 8 pair gets resolved, and I can place the 7 and 8 here, so that has to be a 7, that has to be 8, that has to be 2, and these two cells must be 2 4, that has to be a 4, that has to be a 2. And with that, we have completed this gorgeous construction by Tenaliraman. He always manages to produce some really witty constructions. This one was also no exception. It was a fantastic solve. So hope you guys enjoyed watching me solve the Sudoku. We hope to be back again soon with the Sudoku, and if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button below. So take care guys, bye bye.